I think the biggest funder of American universities was Qatar. What?
Yeah, yeah.
That's fucking insane.
And
All right, we got another episode of Intellectual Dummies. We got my buddy Will Enos with us. I'm your host, Luke, and today we're going to be talking about what's going on in Israel. Now, Will, you were in the Israeli army for a long time, correct?
Yep, that is correct. First of all, thanks for having me on, Luke.
Oh,
And yeah, I served. Well, I moved to Israel in 2010 and moved out or moved back to the United States in 2014 and served from 2011 to 2014.
oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome. Now, before we get into it, a couple things that I just want to bring up to the audience is I know I've told my audience before, if I ever have like a political issue, I'll try and represent both sides. Now, I've tried to invite the pro-Palestinian people on. Apparently, they like to hide in my direct messages. And then when it comes time to come on, it's fucking crickets, you know? So um, grow a set of nuts. And if you guys want to come on, we'd be more than happy to have you on. Will said he's more than happy to talk to anybody. We can arrange it. Let's do it. Stop hiding in my DMs. Have a conversation and stop running. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Liberals always run, and this is perfect proof of that. So, but anyways, and by the way, you know who you are. You know who you are. Anyways, okay. So I just had to throw that jab out there real fast. All right. So I guess, it's funny over these last few years, you know me, I've always been a big history guy. I've always been a big politics guy. And I've been on the left and I've been on the right of this issue as well, the whole Israel-Palestine thing, And I admit as a leftist, a former leftist, I didn't know shit about really anything for that matter, let alone what's going on in the world today. Um, but it's funny because like I've been studying a lot of religion lately, and you know, everything that the Jews have been through for the last 1,000 years, it really makes me think that, it makes me believe more in religion if I'm not gonna lie. I mean, just the history, it's like I think that they are God's chosen people. And if they weren't, why does everybody, it seems like every like couple hundred years, people are just like, let's kill the Jews. Like Black Plague, let's kill the Jews. World War II, let's kill the Jews. The Crusades. I know we're supposed to be killing Muslims, but let's kill some Jews too. It's like, what the fuck is going on? You know, but I mean, even like right now, it's crazy that right now we have a whole sect of our. Now I'm going to show my bias a little bit. Is right now we have a whole sect of people in America that are pro-Palestine and pro-Hamas. I was surprised to see that, but at the same time, not surprised because when I was in college, I went to art school. I took a film class, and in this film class, we just watched a bunch of leftist documentaries. And it's like I thought we were supposed to be studying film, and he's just trying to download all this leftist bullshit onto our brain. And one of the documentaries was a pro-Palestine documentary, But have you seen like a shift yourself, like since you've
Yeah,
grown up?
yeah. So I kind of I agree with you in I was surprised, but not really surprised. For me, it was how do I? So obviously, I grew up in the town next to you, the most Irish town in all of the United States.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Google it, and there weren't many Jews where I grew up, and I didn't grow up religious. I didn't grow up, going to temple or anything. I didn't even have a bar mitzvah, to be quite honest. My parents were pretty secular, so I grew up in a pretty liberal house. I just always felt the connection of being a Jew, just that's where, I come from and or where, my mom comes from, Israel, and my half of my family is living there, so I feel like a good connection to just being a Jew, which is what's so great about being a Jew is you don't have to believe in the religion
yeah,
because just
yeah,
to
yeah,
yeah. But growing up, I was aware to the anti-Semitism because of my mother. There would be like certain things where like, Mom, I want to put a mohawk on, and she'd be like, No, you can't. Nazis wore mohawks. And I was like, huh? And so like even so like growing up as a kid, like kids wearing mohawks, I didn't look at that as them being anti-Semitic, but like that's just kind of something I was like aware of as growing up
yeah,
as a kid. I didn't think like, that was like the whole purpose of kids, doing stuff. But that was just kind of an example. Like there'd be
yeah,
like certain like logos. I think it was like an independent logo, which is a
yeah,
skate company. That was like a Nazi symbol, which, I don't know if it like again, I don't think people are aware, when they're kind of, but the things that I did see growing up, in school would be like swastikas in the toilets, in the stalls or whatever, just like randomly. And again, I remember like being a Jew, just kind of like giving them the benefit of the doubt, like they don't really know what they're talking about. It's
yeah,
like it's all bullshit. And after like this sudden wave of like protests, people flooding in the street. You see people running around, covered their face with Hezbollah flags and Hamas flags and wearing Hamas bandanas and like there's so many not only in the United States but in England. My eyes have opened.
yeah,
I'm completely surprised. Um, but at the same time, like I guess I can understand of just the years of indoctrination from our enemy countries, uh,
yeah,
trying to incept the young liberal college students. Um, Not that I was one, so I don't have the young liberal college student experience, but it's just kind of my observation. So, in regards of this seems like so many people feel comfortable, not only like people, just countries just feel comfortable with now just being blatantly anti-Semitic,
yeah,
not allowing Israelis into the Maldives. You got countries that are recognizing a Palestinian state after they just slaughtered a whole bunch of people, and basically saying kill more people and you'll get more land,
yeah,
continually perpetuating the problem. So, there's so many things around this that are very infuriating and almost at the same time comical. It's like a South Park episode.
yeah, yeah. It happened. It happened so fast. And the here's the thing is like if they were doing this the whole time, so what was it like 2004 when Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip? Is that right?
2005.
2005. Okay, so if they've been doing it since then, it's like all right. I guess not to say that you have a point. Maybe you do. Whatever. We'll leave that aside. But it's like you're doing it in the wake of a mass slaughter of Jews, the biggest mass slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust, and now you're coming out? Now you're coming out? Where were you fucking 20 years ago? You know, it's insane. It's insane, and I just don't you know, it's just and you know, it goes to show how easy it is. How easy it is for something like the Holocaust to happen again, you know, and it could be with anybody, you know. I mean, if these people in America or in England or whatever, if they could do what they wanted, they'd be rounding people up. I have no doubt in my mind. I really don't, you know.
It's you know, it's I don't know if like a Holocaust type thing could happen, but definitely some really bad things could.
Yeah,
I remember pretty close after October 7th in Paris, there were people that went around and like spray painted Stars of David on known Jews' houses, you know, the Jews that had like the mezuzahs on their
yeah,
doors or whatever. So obviously there's a hatred of the Jews, and you know it's out there. Um, it's always been there. You say 1,000 years, but you know the history dates back over
yeah,
2,500 years of
yeah,
persecution and you know revolt and all that. So it's a rich history, and you know I'd like to also say that for the Palestinians, I mean they've been there I think since 600 BC when they took over the Levant, so like 600-ish, 640.
mm,
So I have it pulled up somewhere, but it's in the 640s, you know, AD, and so obviously they've been there for a very long time as well, over
yeah,
1,500 years nearly. So, you know, I don't want to disregard the fact that the war right now in Gaza, the you know, and the amount of just death overall in this war is absolutely like horrific. But you know, you say things about possible Holocaust, and like around the world, you look at what else is going on around the world, and there are things that are seem to be on that level. I mean,
yeah,
there are, you know, you see what's happening in Yemen is pretty brutal. You see, Egypt is a rough place when you really start to look in what's going there. Um, Sudan, you know, like
yeah,
there's a lot. You could go on and on. But for this conflict, this goes back years. In before obviously before October 7th, it goes back before, you know, 2005, where the Jews forcibly removed 10,000 Jews forced out of Gaza. Um, my a friend of mine's brother was part of that unit, and um, was part of forcibly removing them. You know, in hopes for peace. There's a whole video of it of the spokesman of the army there, you know, is saying this is the last Jew, you
yeah,
know, and then you know the intifadas, the second intifada that ended just before that. You know, you had the first intifada from the 80s to the 90s. You go back to 1948, and it goes back further than 1948.
yeah, yeah,
It's I think it's important for everyone to, if you want to have an opinion, uh, do some research.
mm,
I'm not saying that anyone's hands are clean. Of course not. War is disgusting. Building up a country is built around war. Every country that has ever been
yeah,
built, it's pretty
absolutely.
much the same thing. We all walk on, you know, during those times, they all walked on skulls. That's the way that countries were made. And um, but I think it's very important in order to get to this to solutions. And let me tell you, let me preface that I'm very wishful thinking for solutions. I'll preface that by saying I'm a pessimist. I don't think that there will ever be a solution. I don't think that there will be peace, or justice or retribution or whatever. I don't believe that, but at least for a little bit of faith's sake, in order to maybe find the solutions, you have to understand the past. It's
Yeah,
it's it's not something where you can just start in at right now or October 7th or the second intifada or whatever. You have to really understand why these sides, the Israelis and the Palestinians, um, are just constantly in conflict.
yeah. When I first got into the history, I was listening to um, Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. I definitely recommend that. And he was talking about how um, so when the Jews inhabited the Levant area, it was the tribes of Israel. The northern tribes were conquered by the Assyrians. The southern tribes were conquered by the Babylonians. And who was it? Cyrus the Great, after he defeated I think both of them, not just the Babylonians, brought all the Jews back to that area. So I'm like, holy
Yes.
shit, it goes back that far. That's
Yeah.
fucking insane. Now, just imagine if that never happened. If that never happened, you might not even hear. I mean, the Jews might have died out a long time ago, or at least the religion. You know,
Well, um,
you think? Yeah,
perhaps, I would have assumed that they would have stayed around. I mean, Jews were always around the land of Israel, Palestine.
yeah,
They always lived there. They had their sovereign moments where they own the land. That goes even before those when the Levant was conquered. You just it goes back pretty far.
yeah,
Um, back in the BC days. So yeah, it's who knows, thankfully he did bring him back and we don't have to know, we don't have to know.
yeah.
But uh
But that's just to me that's just a crazy moment in history where like if that didn't happen, totally could have changed the entire course of all of human history. You know, because
yeah,
if I look at that moment like, okay, so they went back, they got their land back, they were established, and if that didn't happen, it could have dissipated. Then you don't have Christianity, then you don't have Islam, then it's just a whole fucking crazy. Um, I thought that was just a pivotal moment in history, but I guess my point is that
it is pretty
um,
pivotal.
yeah, I guess my point is like okay, so whatever side you're on this Israel Palestine conflict, if your measurement is whose land it is, who's got the claim, you look at history and it's like who's there first, if that is your measurement. And obviously it's the Jews, and but I guess I mean there's so much to talk about. I really don't know where to start if I'm being honest, but why don't we why
Yeah,
don't yeah, why don't we uh tell us about your time serving in the military over there? Like what did you do? What was going on over there?
sure. And I just to address one thing that you did say before I go into that, I believe that historically there both is a claim to that land. And the Arabs conquered that land in the 600s,
Yeah,
and when the Jews returned. They returned to that land, and they returned as a minority. As a systemic minority. They made Jews wear gold stars around their necks,
Yeah,
and they could only ride the donkeys. They weren't allowed to ride horses for since that time. But there was a long time that they were the majority in that land, and then but they were it was never a sovereign land. It was always just owned by the richest Arabs around.
yeah,
It was like, and that's just pretty much how it went. There was no like certain coins. I want to say, from like Palestine or Philistine is what it was originally named. Um, when but regardless of that, like obviously, I mean, maybe not obvious for everyone, but at least for me, I feel that they both have a claim to the
yeah,
land.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, my time in the army was pretty life-changing,
yeah.
to say the least. As you know, we grew up, and we grew up together, and I dropped out of high school, and just wasn't headed down the best path, I would say. I didn't really know where I was going. Ended up going to Israel, and just kind of when I first got there, just had a feeling that I just needed to be there for a little bit and see what's going on. And sure enough, I made some great friends. And a year later, got recruited into the military. I went into a fighting unit, a ground unit, like ground combat, um, and then got accepted into a special force, or the special force for that brigade, uh, through a tryout, and completed the training. Was 13 or 14 or 15 months, and roughly another year and a half of active duty. So nearly 3 years I served in the IDF. And my unit, we were trained for anti-tank weaponry. So, using certain anti-tank missiles in all-out war scenario,
Yeah.
and counterterrorism. So we would make arrests for um, those doing harm to the civilians.
Yeah, yeah. So was that mostly inside of the Israel border or inside of the Gaza Strip or the West Bank?
So I served in the West Bank, and
Okay.
I also served on the border of Syria, on the border of Lebanon. I served in Gaza, well, not inside of Gaza, but on the base, actually the base that got overrun.
Oh wow.
Um, so I've served next to Egypt. I've been all over. But the arrest that my unit would do predominantly was in the West Bank, and some random other ones in those other places that I
Yeah.
mentioned.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, and we had I can yeah, yeah, we had the way that it worked is we would go to a certain place, and we would kind of just guard and do missions out of there for a couple months, 2 or 3 months. And then we would go back to our like home base, I guess you could say, and do essentially refreshment trainings. And that was the life for for a good amount of time. Um, yeah, it
Now,
was a great. What's that?
did you ever find some like I mean, you were trying to catch terrorists doing people harm. Did you ever find? I mean, I'm sure you found weapons, bombs, shit like that.
We found So this was a different time. This was in during my time, my service, it was relatively quiet.
Yeah,
So what we did wasn't more search, it wasn't raids, it was specific information on a certain individual that had done wrong.
yeah,
And we would bring him to justice, bring him to court, or
yeah,
throw him in jail. These are, we had documented proof of things as far up as murder. So it seeing what people don't understand is the West Bank, Gaza. These are not. This is not Israel. These are annexed territories that are controlled by the Palestinian Authority and Hamas,
yeah,
um, and other rich factions, rich families. And obviously, you have the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So you have, you know, a big there's the big misconception that it's a part of Israel. Israel, that's where Israel occupies. That's also where the settlers um, do their bullshit, which I completely disagree with. I wish that those settlements just would stop.
So what do you mean settlements? What is that?
So there are Jews that go in and create cities essentially, or towns,
Yeah,
little communities, little places, and there's a lot of violence back and forth, and it creates a lot of tension, and they build and build, and the unfortunate truth is the government of Israel protects them very strongly.
yeah,
Uh, and it's a perpetuation of the conflict. I don't believe that just stopping the settlements would be a solution to the conflict.
yeah,
But that is one thing that would make some ease. That would bring some ease and maybe guide a path to a real solution. But they steal, they take over houses, and Palestine, or the West Bank and Gaza are really tough places to live. Like
yeah,
I feel so horrible for the Palestinians that have to be born there and grow up under a controlling power like Hamas, and
yeah,
even the Palestinian Authority, which is also just corrupt. They pay for slay. If you kill a Jew, your family, and you die and you're a martyr, then your family will be paid. So, there's all these different perpetuations to keep the conflict going.
yeah.
And you gotta figure out ways to really like put out all these little fires, because there's so many. But even then, I don't think it gets down to the root cause of the problem. I realize I went a little bit off a tangent from my military service.
Oh, it's all good. All good. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that's the way that it works out there, and so it's like a lawless area. It's
yeah,
and obviously there are checkpoints. I mean, you have a terrorist hub, people that want to kill people,
yeah,
and over the course of the years, I'm not talking about since like last year or 2 years ago. This is since the 60s, I mean, even before then, but let's just go back to the 60s, I
yeah.
guess.
So that was the
Um,
big war, right? It was the 60s?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, not necessarily. You had the Lebanese wars. I mean, if you consider the Intifada's wars, but not, but yeah, yeah. I mean, this is definitely the biggest war, and this war is, it doesn't seem to be over. I mean, people don't register for some reason that Hamas attacked on October 7th and Hezbollah attacked on October 8th.
Yeah.
And Hezbollah hasn't finished attacking. They have been raining down rockets in the north,
Wow.
and they've just been hitting the same exact spots that they've hit. And, dozens of thousands of Israelis are displaced, a lot of my friends included. And uh, they can't go back. There is no going back.
Yeah.
And so, that's something that the Israeli Defense Forces is probably preparing for, is the next war for Hezbollah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're hitting the same spot. So is that like, because I mean, is that them just kind of flexing? Like, hey, we're gonna start something, but not enough for you guys to get really involved, but we're just gonna keep hitting the same couple, maybe half a dozen towns or whatever, and we know there's no people here, but we're hitting them enough where you can't go back and is that what they're
Yeah,
doing?
man, that is the general gist of their plan right now. You
Yeah.
really did nail that on the head. That's they're if they started raining down shit on Haifa or Tel Aviv, which they probably can get some missiles in there, um, then obviously that it allows Israel to retaliate with full force.
Yeah, yeah,
So they're just playing target practice on the same targets.
yeah,
and those targets just happen to be homes and military installments. And it's funny because you know it is insane that we have Hamas supporters in our country.
yeah,
And if they're truly that delusional and believe that Hamas is the Palestinian liberation and they're out for the Palestinian people. Um, Even if you were willing, like I couldn't, like how could anyone accept that? But even if you do accept that, right? Well, what does Hezbollah want? You
yeah,
know, they literally just want the death of Israel.
yeah,
They want to destroy it, obliterate it. So, and they have, some really high tech shit, and they're really well funded and way better trained than Hamas. So that's a real threat right
yeah.
now, a looming threat in Israel. Which I was just there. I just got back a few days ago, by the way. Um, I spent 9 days in Israel and just got back and but yeah, that's definitely a looming a looming something.
Yeah, it's yeah, because I've been keeping up with the Hezbollah thing, and as far as like, we do have pro Hamas supporters, pro Hezbollah supporters. I mean, we've seen the what is the scarf called?
The kafiyas.
Yeah, the Cathiyas. I've seen the Cathiyas. I've seen Americans saying, "I am Hamas. I am," and it's just like I know these people haven't been doing any honest research, because as anybody who's been researching, I mean, Hamas has pretty much been taking any dollar that they can get, they don't give to the people. They have been building these tunnels for decades, stocking up on weapons for decades. I forget what year it was, but I think it was like what countries what was it? I think it was like Denmark and some other Norwegian countries all pitched in to give the people of Palestine a fresh water system, bunch of pipes and stuff like that to put fresh water through. And they sunk them all into the ground. And as soon as they were done, Hamas dug them up and made a video about how we just made rockets out of all these pipes. And
Yeah,
I know as you were kind of said earlier, like Israel's not perfect, Palestine's not perfect, but I guess the moral the moral equivalency is so far off to me. because it's like, yeah, okay, Israel might not be perfect, like you said, but um, uh, I don't see Israeli soldiers chopping the heads off of people with shovels. You know,
Right. And
you
they're
know,
definitely not ordered. They're not ordered to do that.
uh,
You see in this massacre that these Hamas and also let's not be blatant and blind to the fact that there were also thousands of civilian Palestinians that crossed the border and slaughtered in cold blood all these innocent people. I went to the Nova Music Festival site and we went to the bomb shelters next to the bus stations. And you see the bullet holes and you know you hear the stories of what had happened and the rape, the amount of rape that there was,
yeah,
the amount of sexual organ amputation there
yeah,
was on victims to humiliate. You know, it was they had found books on how to rape the right way and make sure
yeah,
that you don't leave the victim like shoot him in the head, you know, when you're done, basically.
yeah,
And you know, in war, you're gonna have horrible shit, but you do, the Israelis are not ordering their men to do this.
yeah. We're not
There
writing
is
fucking
there.
pamphlets on rape,
Yeah.
you know? In terms of like warfare, what Hamas is doing is not warfare. It's something different. I mean, it's terrorism. It's terrorism. Those aren't the rules of war. They're not. We talk about like the raping and pillaging and stuff like that. None of this you can chalk up to casualties of war. Like you drop a bomb, some civilians get caught. It sucks. It's horrible. That's war. But war isn't flying into a music concert and mowing down a bunch of children, you know? Um,
Right.
I mean, we've all seen the same videos. Horrible,
And
malicious stuff.
people in their homes and people
Yeah,
in their homes. Uh, the kibbutzim is something so horrific that happened there. And the festival and beyond, people just driving down the street and getting an RPG right to the face,
yeah,
at 7 o'clock in the morning, um, on their way to their family's house on a holiday. All these attacks always seem to happen on holidays
yeah,
when Israelis are caught off guard. Um, it's really upsetting. Um, you know, you make the point of when you had the countries, including Israel, um, donate and help to create a desalination program so they have drinkable water, like we talked about, and then they dug it up to create rockets and made a YouTube video on that.
yeah,
And when you go a little step further, because it's like maybe a lot of people kind of would stop right there, but like my question is like, okay, so then what happened? How did they get water? And what happened is Israel then was like, shit, they saw that. They're like, well, now the Palestinians don't have any water. So we're going to create a pipeline from our water to the Gaza Strip to provide them with water.
yeah,
And so that is literally like, and that's why the history is so important of when on those first days of the war, when Israel shut off the water to Gaza, which is wackadoo, which is I can't believe, that's insanity that they did that. But the reason that they were even able to do that is look in the history books, like when they try to give the Palestinians their own water, in their own water plant, Hamas dug up those things and made rockets that they shot indiscriminately in Israel since 2000.
yeah,
So that's why, just pulling back to that first point I made, it's so important to know the history and the reasonings of why we're at to where we are today. There are the world seems, or at least the Western world, um, seems to be obsessed with the oppressor oppressed narrative,
Yeah.
and they fall into what they believe Israel to be a white European colonial nation, that is oppressing the dark, poor people.
Yeah.
And that's why you just have to do your own history. Like the majority of Israelis are brown.
Yeah.
The Israeli Jews, most of them come up. One of my best friends is a Yemen Jew. We have Moroccan Jews, Iraqi Jews. These are where my friends' families come from. Um, mine. I mean, again, my mother's from Israel, and so is my grandmother. But we come from Poland, or sorry, or Belgium, but also Spain,
Yeah.
and also Italy. So, they're from all over the place, and it's funny that they can even believe that narrative is even possible. Where like in Europe they were being murdered by the millions. Usually in a colonial state, you send them out to take over and then report back. Well, that's not really what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just were happening to be rounded up and slaughtered by the Germans.
Yeah. 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 How about that white colonialism? It's like I'm pretty sure they tried to kill us too. You know, yeah, it's definitely a misinterpretation of history for sure. And anytime someone says, "Oh, you white colonial oppressor," I know where you're at in your head, and I hate you. Yeah, you know. Um, no, that's
Yeah,
not true. That's not true because yeah. But I mean, let's put it this way: I don't hate you. I disagree with you. I already
that's better.
know. I already know I disagree with you. Uh,
Yeah,
but
clearly, yeah, they're not the person that does the research. It's
yeah,
unfortunate, and there's so many out there. I
yeah,
think um I think there's yeah, again, I'm a pessimist. I just it's hard for me just seeing what's going on. How do you convince a group of people that's being told that they're being genocided, that they're being
yeah,
apartheided when they're not even part of the country? You're telling them this for years, and that now countries are recognizing as states. They're trying to essentially tell them keep going and you'll wipe Israel off the map. You'll
yeah,
succeed of your goal. And I I just find it very difficult to believe that there will be a de-radicalization. I don't disbelieve in the IDF's defeat of Hamas militarily. And hopefully we can get another Arabic uh, third player to kind of run Gaza and
yeah,
hopefully West Bank, because it can't be Hamas. Because if there's some ceasefire and there's no real solution after this war in Gaza, there's just going to be another war in 2 or 3 years, in Gaza. So, there has to be like a complete de-radicalization of this notion that, the land of Israel isn't here to stay.
yeah,
You
yeah,
and that it's hard, it's hard for me to believe that it can be done. But hey, the World War II happened. The Japanese de-radicalized, I guess you can say.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
I
Ja-
mean, it has to start, if it's going to be de-radicalized, number one, you got to get rid of Hamas. You got to get rid of Hamas. Two, you really got to take over their systems. You just do. Their education systems, their political systems. And it's going to take decades. It's going to take decades. I mean, you know, when Hitler rose to power, took over the institutions and taught people from the ground up. By the time the 40s were happening, people were already in that mindset, you
yeah.
know. So I think unfortunately the Palestinian population, I think what is it, like 49% of them loved what happened. Well, maybe not loved, but agree with what happened in October. So it's like, how do we deal with that? And I guess another question that I have too, it almost seems like the entire Arab world is using these Palestinians as pawns to brainwash the rest of the world into look at what Israel's doing, look at what Israel's doing. Because who's taking refugees right now? Nobody. I mean, you got Egypt borders, they're not taking anybody. Nobody's taking any Palestinian refugees. Lebanon is a Palestinian country, is it? Is it Lebanon or um
They're actually the Palestinians that are apartheid in Lebanon. The Palestinians aren't allowed to be doctors. They're not allowed to be a taxi driver. They're
wow.
not allowed to hold any job, buy land. Um, but Jordan is a Palestinian
Oh,
country.
Jordan, that's what I meant. Like that's another Palestinian country. How come they're not taking any refugees? They're not helping in any way, shape, or form, except being like, look what they're doing. Look what it's like. The world is using this tragedy as like I said, they're using it as a chess piece, just strategically. Like, oh yeah, we're not going to help them, but look what's going on. Look what's going on. I mean, nobody
I
wants anything to do with them.
I agree. I agree that there's the big they are a chess piece, and the big players are Iran and Hezbollah and obviously Hamas and now the Yemen Houthis.
Yeah,
So and it's funny because yes, they're I guess it's not that it's funny, but you zoom out, you look at the map, and Israel is this tiny, tiny, tiny little speck
yeah,
on this flooded Muslim and Arab region. And it seems that there's a big, like you said, uh, incorrect education about the history. I mean, there's a good YouTube channel. It's called The Ask Project. I repeat, The Ask Project. And this dates back to 20 years, like since YouTube is open. And it's this guy that just unbiasedly goes into the Palestinian territories and goes into Israeli territories and just asks questions. It's a great way to really understand what the people on the ground are thinking, because I think a big point that should be made is the Israeli military, right? Hamas, uh, uh, the U.S. military. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they are. They're all made up of human beings, right? People like have this misconception, like, oh, the IDF is just every Israel like Israeli and these are actual people that are part of something that human beings make them up, right? Of what they are.
Yeah.
And so getting to know the individuals that are in the big named corporation-y things, that's important. To hear what people on the ground are saying that are experiencing it there. I made a very strong point of trying to ask my friends and my family that were there, their experience, on October 7th, for instance, but also, just living through, like the kids. All right, so think about it this way: kids our age, my friends, grew up with the Second Intifada, and the Second Intifada, broke out after Yasser Arafat walked out on a peace deal. The Palestinians could have had a state, and there could have been, I think it was the Clinton Accords or the Clinton parameters, and he walked out. He literally got up and walked out of the room. And then the Second Intifada happened. And what would happen in the Second Intifada were massive uh, amounts of suicide bombings and attacks at bus stations, on buses and pizza shops and malls was a huge one. I remember going to Israel in like 2002 or whatever during the Intifada, and going to the beach and seeing this building, like, just, I was like, what happened to this building? Why does it look like that? And it was like, oh, it was a club, and there was a suicide bomber that killed 17-year-old kids that were celebrating like their senior night or whatever, like,
Wow.
their prom night or something. So, growing up with that kind of mentality, really sets a tone, a way of thinking for a group of people. And, I'm talking on the Israeli side, and you really do have, like, over the years, it becomes more and more right, more and more right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and, on the other side, you have, obviously, there's violence on both sides. I feel like I don't want to, but you're not getting suicide bombings or anything like this. But there are, when you have arrests or whatever in the army, you have the bad people that are, inherently racist, and they'll do something that they're not ordered to do.
Yeah.
Something, that this is what happens. And um, it's a damn shame. Uh, but beyond that, you have, as we discussed, a region of countries that are being told, that are telling the Palestinians to fight, and the Israelis and Israel will fall. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy when you go back in the history of the amount of peace deals that were offered, and the reason that is so clear. You listen to the people on the Ask Project on YouTube. You look at the objection, the rejections of peace deals, and the number one priority for the Palestinians inherently seems to not be getting a Palestinian statehood. It seems to be the destruction of Israel.
Yeah.
And so, how do you de-radicalize that idea? Is, to me, the ultimate changer of the conflict.
Yeah.
And I don't see how that can be done when you have an establishment like UNRWA, which is just a horrible perpetuation. They've changed the definition of a refugee, specifically for the Palestinians, where the right of return like was birthed. Um, But yeah, it's crazy. You know, how they get what UNRWA does is any offspring that is Palestinian is declared a refugee. So you could have been a, 3-month-old baby in 1948 after you and your parents in the Arab surrounding countries tried to exterminate Israel when they claimed independence. You lost the war and you moved to the United States, and that person grew up in Philadelphia and then had a kid that became a Palestinian refugee, and that kid grew up in Philadelphia and had a kid, and that kid is now a Palestinian refugee, and they grew up now with the same time we did, maybe moved to Boston, and they are have Palestinian, and they're a refugee.
Yeah.
And you, even in Gaza, in your own state, or your own territory, you are also a refugee. Like, I don't understand how that makes sense. Where in the UN, when there is a war and there's a conflict, once you get displaced, the second you either go back to your country or become a citizenship to another country, you lose the title of refugee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so UNRWA creates this in 1949, and it's just a perpetuation. And not only that is the things that the UNRWA schools teach. It's all very dark shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's it's been rooted for so many years, like to unweave that net is, like
Yeah.
you said, decades of work. Decades.
Decade. I mean, like I said, you would just have to take over their institutions, and it would take decades, but that's what you would have to do. What do you can't, unfortunately, you can't leave them to their own devices because we did that, or the Israelis did that, and this is what we got. We got this horrible terrorist attack, and I mean, shame on the Biden administration, because there are Americans over there that are being held hostage.
He's still hostage. Yeah.
Yeah,
Daniel Hirsch.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? If I don't mean to get into politics about it, but if Donald Trump was fucking president right now, those hostages would be back. I know, not maybe
I
not
agree with
back, but
that.
what was that?
I agree with that. The deal. I do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's nuts though. It's nuts.
it's unfortunate. I will say at the beginning of this war, Biden was great, and he made a great speech that definitely hit me and the Israelis, that came as to unexpected.
Hmm.
But he has undermined a lot. You look at the things that they keep saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. They're just playing for votes.
Yeah,
And as much as I agree that the Israeli government needs to change as well, there needs to be a change in the government. Um, the United States doesn't know how to deal with this kind of enemy that has hundreds of miles of tunnels underneath the Palestinian civilians that are also welcomed by about, at least we'll say, half of the Palestinian civilian ship. Um, and Not only are they just under Gaza, they've found dozens of tunnels going into Egypt.
yeah,
So that, that there's another thing, that Egypt probably, you know, they closed down their, one thing that doesn't hit the media is when Egypt closed down their, they stopped shipping aid to Gaza.
yeah,
And all the aid, by the way, just goes right to Hamas. You can look at all the videos
yeah.
that you
Literally
see.
none of it.
They
Literally
just they
none
just
of it.
they just kill their own Palestinian civilians for the Palestinians trying to steal their own aid that they're supposed to get. Hamas takes it for themselves to eat and then to resell to the Palestinian civilians for a ridiculously high price.
Yeah.
This this is what they do. Um, Once people realize that the best opportunity the Palestinian people have is Israel, there really can't be like a reformation.
Yeah.
You look at the Arabics that live in Israel, there's a few million of them. First of all, they all have the same exact rights as I do as an Israeli. Uh, there are judges that are Arabic. There are a judge through a Jewish Israeli prime minister in jail um, for corruption or some shit. So, I think I heard somewhere that it was like 48% of the graduates for medical in Israel are Arabic.
Yeah.
So you have that and listen, like I go to the beach in Tel Aviv and anywhere, and there are Arabics there that get to live freely and have a good life, whereas in Gaza they have to, it's the same culture of what you would see in Iran, of what you see in Afghanistan, of what you would see in all these other religiously Muslim controlled regimes or terrorist clans that
Yeah.
run the communities. And Gaza is really no different from a Lebanon filled Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And so honestly, the Israelis killing the Hamas and ruining their military power to a point where a new potential um, enforcement can take over that actually cares for the people, that doesn't turn donations into terror,
Yeah.
you know? But it seems that there doesn't want to be a player, there were hopes that the Saudi Arabian prince or whatever will do it. But it's a problem that yeah, I don't see uh I mean, I guess I can see a way, but it just seems impossible.
Yeah. Is there a practical way? Is there a way? Is there a way where you can do that where Israel doesn't seem like the oppressor again? Like I said, you'd have to take over their institutions. Oppressor. You took over
Yeah.
their institutions. You know what I'm saying? So, I
That
just think they're being played so much as a pawn right now. It's a part of me thinks that it's too far gone. It's too far gone, and it's like, what do I mean, is occupation I mean, you got the occupation down, you'd have to take over the institutions after that point, I mean, it's just, and I mean, the civilians of Palestine, I know people feel for them, they're living in a horrible situation. Can't disagree with
can't
that.
deny that, of
Yeah.
course.
But again, almost half of them agree with October 7th. And these last hostages that Israel just got back were being held in civilian houses. I think one of the guys was a journalist.
For Al Jazeera.
Yeah, for Al Jazeera. So
There's a lot of crazy shit, and some of that crazy shit, I will say, just to throw out there so some people understand. Yihya Sinwar, the person that I think I saw, what's her name, Greta Thunberg chanting Yihya Sinwar, we won't let you die, or something like that. Anyway, Yihya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, was a terrorist that was in Israeli jail or prison and released in 2009 or 2010 or 2011, whenever that Gilad Shalit, that one Israeli soldier, was abducted, and something like 1,000 terrorists, like convicted murderers, were released. Well, one of them was Yihya Sinwar, who orchestrated the October 7th attacks. Yihya Sinwar was in jail, in Israeli prison, not for murdering Israelis, for murdering Palestinians.
Wow.
He he was known as the butcher of Khan Yunis. Um, his daughter had cancer or something, and is in an Israeli hospital, operated and saved her life. Um,
Wow.
and yet you have people that are chanting, "We won't let you die." There's there's a big letdown in society that I feel. It's it's unfortunate. I mean, I'll tell you what, I never owned a gun before October 7th. And as a Jew, I on October 11th I had one.
Yeah.
So it's it's a scary time seeing what the world is, because after Trump, I believe Trump will be the next president.
Yeah.
So after Trump, who's a pro-Israel president? You know, you look in the colleges and you see what's going on, and they're clearly rooting for no Israel. Like no, like having no Israel. They're if they're aligned with Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran, and they're getting praise from these places, like the leader of Hezbollah, the leader of Iran, sent a message to the college students of the universities saying thank you. Like, you're doing the work for us. Like,
I know. That was fucking insane. And Alvin Bragg, the DA in New York that's prosecuting Trump right now, just dropped all the charges for all the students that took over that Columbia University. So I just read that today, actually.
well, yeah, you know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, our enemy countries have donated something like $6 billion to the universities.
Yeah, they're literally being funded by terrorists. You know, I mean, there's different ways. I mean, it's not like there's like a Hamas or a Hamas donate to me that's donating to Colombia, but there's middlemen organizations that do that. I think the biggest funder of American universities was Qatar. What?
Yeah, yeah.
That's fucking insane.
And yeah, and what, like, in 10 years, when these people have kids, and these, you know, people that have values of being able to wear a bikini and being able to speak freely and being able to live in a place where you can protest,
Uh,
and they have kids or whatever, and something crazy happens in the United States, because mark my words, they will. Look at these protests. I'm not saying that all the people are bad people, and I'm not saying that all those people had ill intentions, that I feel a lot of them are uneducated, but I will say that there was plenty that knew damn well what they were saying, that damn well wanted the death and destruction of Israel and America. And when there's another attack, people will realize, what the hell was I thinking?
how you mentioned earlier how, you know, you have the oppressors versus the people being oppressed, and people default to the people that are being oppressed are the victims, right? Which maybe they are in some way, shape, or form, but at the same time, it's like maybe these people are trying to kill everybody, though. You know, maybe if we didn't do something, they would kill everybody, you know? there's just a lot of very, I guess I want to say simple concepts, but I see a lot of these leftist Americans not thinking rationally about things. Like, for instance, what's been happening in Cambridge and New York and all these campuses all across the country.
Mm.
They're all a bunch of leftists with pink hair. Fucking, you couldn't throw a magnet past them because it would attach to their face because they got so many fucking piercings. Bisexual, fucking trannies, fucking all. I don't know if trannies is the thing. I apologize. I don't know what the words are. The men that are trying to be women and vice versa, you know.
I
But
think it's yeah, just trans.
queers for Palestine, it's
Oh
like,
God. What
you
is that?
know, yeah.
What even is that?
Well, I don't understand. It's like that's the most extreme version of you're going with the oppressed, right? But the oppressed, for lack of a better analogy, the oppressed are being oppressed because they're trying to kill everybody, you know? And it's like the fact that you don't know that if a Palestinian was in front of you, they would at the very least, spit in your face.
Yeah, I was thinking like spit around you or like yeah, like
Yeah.
that's
You know,
funny.
you're a man in a skirt. They would kill you, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and I won't mention her name. I want to so bad because she runs from conversations like it's her fucking day job and she's in my DMs. Jess, all right? You know, she hit me with the fucking with the you're okay with genocide? It's like, okay, so first off, how many Arabs live in Israel? I think there's like 2 million, right?
Yeah, a little over 2 million. Yeah.
They're not being murdered by Israel's, like they're not being, they're not getting rounded up and murdered. Like that's not genocide. It's
Yeah,
not,
we're not putting necklaces around them to
yeah,
identify them. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And and I brought up the point. I go, didn't you tell me one time that you were bisexual? They would kill you by breakfast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these are the people that you're advocating.
At the very least, they if your best case scenario is your family would hide you and get you to Tel Aviv, where it's like one of the gayest cities in the world. And in the most likely scenarios, you get disowned, beaten, and fucking raped and shit,
Yeah,
and sold into slavery. You know, it's like it's funny that people are like so, obsessed with the slavery that, we abolished. Um, and there's literal slavery going on in those Middle Eastern countries. Like it's like a very big trade.
yeah,
It's happening.
it is.
It's
Yeah,
still happening.
I
So,
know. Look, Libya. Look what happened when Gaddafi. I mean, Gaddafi piece of shit, but open air slave markets as soon as
dude,
that government fell.
North Korea,
Yeah,
North Korea is ridiculous. China, man,
yeah.
China are like slaving like Christians or or at least
The Uyghur Muslims. China's enslaving the Uyghur Muslims, and they also traffic North Korean women to get sold into sex slavery. I read the book
yes.
In Order to Live. Fucking insane story. Her mother got sold to like a retarded person or something. I don't know if I'm thinking of the same book, but it's
Yeah, I listen to Yayo and Me Park a lot.
yeah,
So,
yeah, she wrote that book. Yeah, yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fucking wild.
Yeah, her story's insane. And
It's
it's like,
insane.
but here's the thing is that's in a lot of these countries, that's the cultural norm of things, is slavery. In a lot of Arab countries, it's having sex with little boys.
And that's what
Oh,
the Western countries can't fathom. Like their brain is hard for them to realize that there are people living this way and choose it. Like I went uh when you go to Israel with someone that's never been there before and you show them things and see their mind get blown on just like the way things are. Like in Israel, a lot of those Arabic towns that though they have all the rights that I do, Israelis aren't really and some of them and the big ones, yeah, like Yaffo, I was like Yaffo and Haifa, you go to places that, it's like culturally mixed, but then there are places where if you go in as a Jew, you're not coming out
And that's in Israel.
in Israel.
Yeah.
And while they can go anywhere and not worry
Yeah.
and not worry about,
Yeah.
like just last year, just before October 7th, there was a um I don't know if he was a Palestinian, but the only thing I do know was he was a Muslim. I'm not saying that all Muslims, want this, but that's the only fact I know about the guy. So
Yeah.
let it be that. But he drove his car into the Tayelet, which is the boardwalk right in Tel Aviv, to murder Jews and ended up killing two tourists from Italy.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's just you don't yeah, it's just it's a crazy way of living, for so long after pretty much your since your independence, and even when you got your independence in war, you weren't allowed to win a war. You were allowed to win up to a ceasefire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because I mean, these leftists that are chanting genocide, oh, genocide Joe and stuff, whatever. Um, I think out of any war in modern history, they have the lowest civilian to terrorist kill ratio.
Yeah,
And it's like
in urban warfare.
yeah, in urban warfare, which tells you that Israel's not genociding and they're not indiscriminately bombing. Because if they were, that ratio would be way off. It would be way off. And then you got the Biden administration withholding weapons that would make that job easier. What was it like? I forget what the word is. It's like targeting bombs, like making sure that the bomb actually hits here and doesn't hit a civilian.
Yeah, yeah,
Withholding those weapons, which would only just increase civilian casualties.
yeah,
So where's your head at?
exactly.
Yeah,
It's crazy. You had the AOC who was trying to defund the Iron Dome missiles. Those are the missiles that blow up missiles on the
yeah.
way. They're
The
defense.
defense,
They're all
yeah,
defense. They're not even attack.
yeah,
It's insane. It's crazy that these things are happening. And yeah, the Biden administration undermines Israel like every step of the way. Look at what Israel's done. They're like, you can't go into Rafah. You can't move, a million people. And they moved a million people out of Rafah in 3 weeks.
yeah.
I'm upset that they waited for so long. If they had gone into Rafah and didn't wait for 2 or 3 months with the pressure from Biden, this
Yeah,
war, this war would be over by now.
I know, I know.
It's sometimes it's unfathomable when you just like keep digging and you just keep going and you go in those rabbit holes where you're just like reading like all this, like what all and obviously there's a lot of fake shit out there and you got to make sure that you're not fucking taking the word of a lot of the dumb stuff and
Yeah,
it's on both sides. You just got to go and find the facts. um
yeah. I mean, when I was talking about the Muslim countries using Palestinians as political pawns, Joe Biden's doing the exact same thing. Where he's saying, don't go into Rafah, don't go. Oh, you got a plan? Like, of course they have a fucking plan. You know what I'm saying? But he needs the votes in Dearborn, Michigan, because Michigan's a swing state and there's a big Muslim population, and he needs those fucking votes. He's using them as a pawn, just like
Seems
everybody
like
else
he's
is using them as a pawn. You
seems
know?
like he's not doing himself any favors. It seems like that community is pissed at him anyway because they're still giving them weapons.
Yeah,
Um, and you know, I'll say this. I was in Israel, and a common mentality is what the Western doesn't understand is they don't give a fuck about what we think over here.
yeah,
They really don't care. They will fight with their fingernails if it comes down to it
yeah,
because they're fighting a war of existence. There are bigger things at play than the Gaza and the Palestinian conflict right now. Now you have Hezbollah and Iran, and if an all-out war breaks out with Hezbollah, Hezbollah can do a lot of damage.
yeah.
A lot, a lot. And if Iran decides to maybe send troops, like I don't think they would because that's a long distance, but that's some shit that I don't think people really understand. Israel has been under constant rocket fire for 10, sorry, double that at least, 20 plus years
Yeah.
from Gaza and Hezbollah. And Hezbollah, by the way, have tunnels too. It's not just Hamas. There's
Yeah.
tunnels from Lebanon into Israel. They, I've even learned today that they even created like a tent like somewhere on Israeli soil that Israel doesn't explode because it's on Israeli soil. And so they've like established a military outpost in Israel.
Wow.
And they're just hitting rockets, the same rocket. Like October 7th happened, and October 11th, one of my closest friends, sister, mother of three, uh, on October 11th, wakes up to rockets falling down all over them. And she grabs her kids, throws them in the car with nothing but the clothes on their back, and take off and have been living in my buddy's parents' house since
Wow.
because their house is essentially burned down and she doesn't I think the only thing she grabbed were like her passports or her maybe her ex I think went and grabbed the passports because that's like it's dangerous,
Yeah.
and people don't like that's just happening. And since then, there has just been dozens of rockets daily. When I was in Israel just a few days ago, there was a barrage of like 300 rockets within 48 hours. Um,
That's crazy.
and again, they're hitting the same spots, but they have the weaponry to send 10,000 strong missiles that are guided into Tel Aviv, Haifa, or whatever. So, at a moment's notice, Israel could be at a major war because the Iron Dome, the Patriot missile, I think is what it's called, in uh, the one that intercepts.
Yeah.
It's only for smaller rockets, like the ones that Hamas shoots.
Yeah.
These bigger ones are a lot harder to deal with. So, it's not I'm not saying it's something where I think Hezbollah would win in an all-out war because if that were to happen, Israel gets to unleash
Yeah.
fury,
Yeah.
but it's it could, you
Yeah.
never know. October 7th happened. That's something that I'm guilty of, you know, um, not really thinking of the Palestinian suffering for years, and the government did the same thing in the government of Israel, um, while perpetuating, with the settlements. So
Yeah. That's crazy shit.
it's yeah, it's but now obviously you can't be blind to these things. The Palestinians need something better than Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. And if it has to be the Palestinian Authority, as like put someone new, something else, like figure out a way to make it work with their own government to give them something, but as you said, it's decades and decades of work, and that's just one aspect. You
Yeah.
know, you got Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas, and like in Hamas's charter, their first sentence is Israel will exist and continue to exist until Islam obliterates it.
Yeah.
And so you have all those three places that are dedicated to the destruction of Israel. All comes before Palestinian statehood.
Yeah.
Like how do you, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
how do you educate the other way?
Yeah. No, it's tough because you're just those countries surrounding Israel, you're just always gonna get that propaganda. You're always gonna get that propaganda, and you know, it's uh it's a spot that no Western country has is in or will ever be in. If I mean, um, it's there's really no equivalency. Really, there's really no equivalency. I mean, yeah, it's a tough situation, and I would like to, if we do set up a debate, hopefully in the future, we'll see what's up. But like I said, liberals always run. Um, uh, That would be a good question. Well, what would you do? What's your solution? Because the solution can't be, is the solution all the Jews leave? Is the solution all the Muslims leave? That's not going to happen without insane violence. So what is it? I don't know, but yeah, that's crazy shit. I think the Biden administration has certainly been fumbling in recent past in this whole regard. Um, but yeah, no, it's a crazy world. It's a crazy world, and unfortunately, our institutions here in America are also corrupted by this. Like I said, from college, I was watching pro-Palestinian um, propaganda, and it's like, I don't know, not to be redundant, but that's where the brainwashing started. That's where all these kids are now. Now they're taking over school systems and shit like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to watch. I had no idea it was going on. I had to educate myself as soon as it erupted.
yeah,
Uh, it's unfortunate because, you say the liberals run, and I my entire life have considered myself a liberal. And now seeing where this liberal left has pushed itself to, it has pushed me to more center. I'd even say center right.
yeah,
And and I've and because I still inherently have a lot of liberal values, um, just for one of them to put out there that I know is a hot topic is abortion.
Yeah.
I Girls should be able to have an abortion. I just don't agree, and I respect anyone who disagrees with me. But for that matter, like again, I'm willing for any kind of debate. I wish that um we could talk with someone on the other side, and which honestly for me it's a hard thing for me to say the other side, because when I say pro-Palestinian and you just associate with, you have to be either like pro-Palestinian, which means you're against Israel and the destruction of it, or you're just pro-Israel and like fuck the Palestinians. And to me, I feel more pro-Palestinian than any of these other pro-Palestinian
Yeah.
protesters, because I want Hamas out of there for them. Hamas has ruined their lives. In 2005, when the United when Israel forcibly removed 10,000 Jews out of Gaza in terms of peace, Hamas comes in, they hold elections. The Gazan people unanimously vote Hamas into power. Hamas then kills the Fatah, which is effectively the PA, the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah.
So Hamas kills them all off, and like gay people and all that stuff. They go on an absolute regime run, and they start indoctrinating kids and turning them into little soldiers and eventual terrorists
Yeah.
and
Suicide bombers. Yeah.
exactly. And on top of that, building these structures and taking donations and using it for terror and keeping the people above you as a shield as you're creating your terrorist base, that you don't allow them to go into for like bomb safety or something like that, and the Hamas is so horrible for the Palestinian people that they need to be out of there, and that's the only way that the Palestinian people can ever have a voice, and and Israel should protect them from that by annihilating them,
Yeah.
by by annihilating the shit out of them
Yeah. Yeah.
as they're fucking doing, and that and that's the end of it, and that's and so again, any, happy to debate anyone, but like I say, like I have a lot of liberal in me, and don't no don't run. We're happy
Yeah.
conversation. I
Yeah.
want
No, it's always been pleasant. We had Keith on, our mutual friend, for a Pride Month episode. We didn't agree, but it was a great conversation. I'll give him points for coming into the Lions Den, and points to anybody that is willing to debate and have a good discussion. But let's end it on this. I got a funny question for you. So when I had my last podcast, we were talking about religion, and I had texted you a question about Jews, and you responded, "Haha, I don't know. I'm a bad Jew." So let me ask you this: Are you a good Jew now? Are you a good Jew? Let
Uh, well, do you remember what that question is? Because that could probably answer it right there.
me see if I still have it in my thread.
I if it was a religious question, I'm still probably a bad Jew. I could never connect with religion in the way that so many people do. I just connect with my Jewish background, where I come from, where my peoples come from, what we've been through, the fact that we're the only language right now to have had it go essentially almost extinct and brought back, and now it's a country that speaks it, and I've learned how to speak it fluently, and it's and live in the place of where my ancestors come from. It's cool as a Jew, so I feel a good Jew in that aspect,
All
but
right, well,
not
we're gonna find out right now because I just found it. Um, so I
no.
texted you. This was 4 years ago. Um, I go, weird question. Jews think Jesus was a prophet, not of the son, not the son of God, correct? And then it says that you laughed at that and said, and then you said, honestly, bro, I have no idea what they believe. And I said, dude, you're my go-to Jewish guy. And you said, haha, I know they believe in Moses was a prophet, but I have no idea about Jesus. I'm a terrible Jew. I didn't even have a bar mitzvah. And I just go, you are a terrible Jew.
So funny. Okay. So yeah, reread me the question. I think I know
So the
the answer.
question was, weird question. Jews think Jesus was a prophet, not the Son of God.
Correct. They
Okay.
don't they don't, yes, they don't believe that he was the son of God. I don't
Okay.
even think they believe he was a prophet because if we're talking about the book, the Torah, it's long before Jesus.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't really have been around. But maybe they accept him as one of the other certain rabbis, maybe. Um, but shit, I guess I'm still a terrible Jew.
Hey, well, you answered the question, so you're doing better. You're doing better.
Okay.
Another
Yeah.
quick funny story before we part ways was when I was dating, I was on Hinge, and I don't know if you've ever used Hinge before. Have you ever used that?
Yeah, I've used
Yeah,
it.
so you can comment on their individual prompts, right?
Right,
And there
right.
was this one Jewish girl, and this is the truth, by the way, is that, I'm like, yeah, I kind of wish I was a Jew. They get like a good sense of community. They just do. Like all the Jews stick together. They're always helping each other out. I just think that's fucking awesome. So I commented on it, on her religion or whatever the prompt was, and I go, yeah, I really wish I was a Jew. And I got banned. Got banned on Hinge. Yeah.
Good band?
Yeah, I got banned on Hinge. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Damn.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate because, you're coming from a good place with that.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I mean, Jews, um, what they worship Moses, right? Because Moses was the only prophet that wasn't a sinner, right?
No, he did
I know you said you're kind of a bad Jew, so I might be.
he did sin right at the end there, apparently. I don't know if they don't worship Moses. They worship Elohim, which is God. Um, but Moses was a leader to back to the kingdom of Israel for the
Yeah.
Jews. And right at the end, it was some story where he like hit a tree and it was like the tree of God, and out of like anger he like kicked it or some shit, and because of that he wasn't allowed to enter into Israel.
Oh,
So
I see. Okay. I
um
gotta brush up on. I've been brushing up on my religious stuff lately. I've been on a little bit of a religious kick lately, so I'm going to. I've been studying up a lot on the Bible and things like that. Not. It's hard for me to get on board with the theology of it, but just a book that's lasted that long all throughout time. There's something there. There's got to be something there. The oldest book in the fucking world. I mean, come on, there's something there. But anyways,
yeah,
we won't get into that right now. But
that's cool though. That's
yeah,
cool. I agree. I've become kind of I've become a history buff myself. And I haven't gotten to the religion stuff, but that sounds cool. And you make a good point. It's the oldest, longest book. Something's got to be
yeah,
there.
a lot of good takeaways. I've been doing Bible study too lately. Like I said, I'm not really like a believer in the theology, but I wanted to learn about it. So this guy I know invited me to his Bible study. I've been doing that for the last few months. And it's dude, a lot of good takeaways. A lot of good
Yeah,
takeaways.
yeah. No, listen,
Um,
I when I moved to Denver, I luckily reconnected with a friend of mine who's a Jew, and he grew up in a Jewish community, and they all moved out here together. So all my friends out here is just like a little Jew community, and
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I wish I was Jewish. accept me into your ranks.
Yeah, we'll take you, of
I'm
course.
Italian, so I'm cheap. I got that
I
going.
just found out I'm Italian.
No,
I just
yeah,
found out
right.
I'm Italian.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though, man. Can I convert to Judaism? Is that possible? I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
I could. Would
yeah,
I
you
be
could.
accepted as a Jew?
Yeah, you
All right,
would. You
I'll
would.
be making that move soon.
Yeah,
My
it's
bar
totally possible.
mitzvah.
My buddy who I reconnected with out here, his wife converted to Judaism.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. You can join the Brotherhood. We would love to have you. I mean, we only got about 16 million, so
Gotta bump those numbers up.
we got to bump up.
That's funny shit. That's funny.
Oh man.
We'll see what happens in that regard, but yeah, man. Hey, great conversation. That was good. We'll see if we can. We'll definitely have you on again. Whether you want to talk about this or nerd on something completely different.
Yeah.
I have the guys. I got a couple people that like to do episodes with me. They pick a subject, and we'll do a couple books on the subject. So whatever you want to nerd out on, whether it's this or something else, man, by
Yeah,
all means.
send me the subjects. I
Well, pick
love
your own subject, and then we'll make a time slot, and we'll try and make an episode about it. I'll study up on it.
Yeah. Well, I'll think of two, but also if you come up with some episodes and and you just want another voice in there, yeah, give me a holler.
Absolutely.
Be happy and I'd be happy to talk this conflict and just be your go-to Jew, I am.
Yeah.
I'm your go-to Israeli Jew. So I go there every year. So you got a soldier on the ground to kind of always
Oh,
tell you how we're thinking.
nice. Well, all right, man. Well, it's been good. Like and subscribe if you've made it this far. Good for you. And yeah, man. All right, sweet man. Until next time.
Yes. Till next time. Thanks, Luke.
Well, man, take it easy.
You too.